Hi, everyone, and welcome to part 2 of my Trump in Wolfeboro. Anyways, this is Pickleball and Politics, where I combine my quest to stay out of the kitchen with my passion for politics. I talked about pickleball in part 1, so if you're interested in my pickleball story of the week, you can watch it in part 1. I am going to continue my Trump rally experience. This is going to be called Trump in Wolfeboro, part 2. There was so much for me to say. The first part of part 1 is about my experience, about the crowd, about getting there, and all the stuff about the peripheral energy at a Trump rally. And now I'm going to talk about what the president actually said. So as I left off, he came out right exactly at 12. I was looking at my watch, my phone, which is my watch. Well, no, this is my watch, but you know what I mean. And right as it turned, I saw it say 11:59. It hit 12, and all of a sudden, Proud to Be an American came out. He came out. The first thing that the president talked about was how great inflation was when he was president and how interest rates were 2.6. And I know they were 2.6 because my daughter got a loan for that, for her first house. So interest rates were really, really low. He talked about how home heating was $1.99 when he was president, and that the cost of everything will come down when he is president again and can bring the cost of energy down, and that bringing the cost of energy down will bring everything down in terms of inflation. He also started talking about Crooked Joe, and he wasn't going to call Hillary crooked Hillary anymore because Joe was more crooked than Hillary ever was. I'm kind of over that. I'm going to be honest with you. As I told you, I've been seeing Trump since 2015. I don't want to hear crooked Hillary anymore. I don't want to hear about Crooked Joe. I don't want to hear about Sleepy Joe. I want to hear about how he is going to right this ship and how he's going to save us from sinking. That's what I want to hear. Honestly, I don't have time for crooked Hillary and crooked Joe and where are Hillary's indictments? Because let's face it, 8 years ago, all we heard at Trump rallies were lock her up, lock her up, lock her up. And he promised he was going to lock her up. And you know what? He didn't. So I don't want to hear lock her up, where are Hillary's indictments, or any of that. I just don't. I'm past that. I know he isn't, but I am. And that's just your average Trump MAGA supporter here. I'm kind of over it. He talked about the wind turbines in the ocean, which are killing whales, which is true. I know New Jersey has had like 12.5 whales killed this year, a dozen. A lot of whales. Go look it up. Trust me, it's a lot of whales have died on the Jersey shore. He talked about lowering energy costs. He talked about that he would ban child mutilation if he was president. There would be no child mutilation. Then he got into the Attorney General in New York, appraising his home, Mar-a-Lago, for only $18 million. And all of that, he said more people called him and said, oh, if Mar-a-Lago's only 18 million, I'd like 3. I thought to myself, if Mar-a-Lago's only 18 million, I'm going to get like 18 people and see if we can all pool in our money and buy it together, right? Because let's face it, that was crazy that they only assessed his Mar-a-Lago for 18 million. That's obviously trying to undermine the president. We know that. Then he started with Crazy Nancy and his perfect phone call, and how Al Capone was only indicted once, but he's been indicted 4 times now. He talked about DeSantis, who has fallen like a wounded bird from the sky. He did call him Ron DeSanctimonious, and that Ron would be nothing without him, and that Ron was ungrateful, and now he's just falling. He did mention that the teleprompter was down yet again. I don't know what that's all about. That's all I'm going to say. Is it sabotage? Does he not have a teleprompter? I don't know what it was. He did call Obama Biden's boss And he also mentioned that he's afraid of World War III with everything that's going on in Israel and the Gaza city and Gaza Strip right now. I think we're all a little bit worried about what's going on in Israel. Everything that's come out of Israel has been horrific. He talked about Chris Christie and how he never, ever liked him or never trusted Chris Christie. But he Chris Christie was around him. I know Chris Christie got COVID and was in the hospital for days and days and days from Trump because he got COVID from Trump, or at least that's what Chris Christie says. He talked about that he wouldn't be partaking in the debates of the Republican nominees, and that because he's not there, the ratings were tanking and nobody cared about any of it. He did wonder what his mom and dad would think of his mugshot. He said, though, it was a great mugshot, the best mugshot ever, of course. And I will say there were a number of people that had his mugshot on their T-shirt that said "Wanted for President." That seemed to be one of the more popular shirts of the day. I will say that about 100 minutes into his speech, and this is stuff because you can all watch the speech. You don't need me to tell you about the speech. I'm there to tell you what happened in the auditorium. About 100 minutes into the speech, and he came out, like I said, exactly at 12 o'clock. So at about 1:20, and where I was sitting towards the back, because I told you if I was there any later, I probably wouldn't have gotten in if I was 10 minutes later, people started leaving. And I've never seen that at a Trump rally. Now, granted, it was a Monday, but it was a holiday. And it was a nice day. And I was so surprised that people started to leave. Now, it wasn't just one or two. Where I was, I would say it was 30 to 40, which shocked me, to be honest with you. The people just started getting up and leaving. Not people who were towards the front, just, mid auditorium back. I don't know if these were people trying to beat the traffic. It wasn't that bad getting out, I will tell you that. If it was people who had to go to work maybe at 3 o'clock, or they were bored. I don't know, but I've never seen people leave before it was over. So I was quite surprised by that. I really was. So much so that I started to notice it because I've never seen anybody get up at a Trump rally. But there were a few problems at this rally that I hadn't seen before. And I'm going to tell you about them in a minute. But I want to tell you he had then got into the snake poem. Sorry, I don't want to hear the snake poem one more time. I'm over the snake poem. I just am. But I will say that 60% of the people who were still in the auditorium at that point, when he said, "Do you want to hear the snake?" they were like, yes, we want to hear the snake. And they all took out their phones and they all recorded it. So maybe I'm over the snake, but the majority of the people in Wolfeboro, New Hampshire on Columbus Day weren't. So they were all into it. I'm over the snake poem completely. I will say that I'm having a little Trump fatigue, personally. I've seen him 3 times this year. I saw him in March in Manchester. I saw him, it was March or April. I forget now. It was March or April. It was April. I saw him in April in Manchester. I saw him in July at Turning Point down in Palm Beach. And I saw him this past week in Wolfeboro, New Hampshire. I think I have a little Trump fatigue. I saw him, like I said, for the first time 8 years ago. And I'm sort of hearing the same stories. Different ones. I mean, I wasn't hearing about gas being $1.99 and interest rates being so low because those were things he accomplished during his presidency. But I heard about Crooked Hillary and how he was going to indict her and lock her up and a lot of that rhetoric. And I know some people love that, but I just feel there is so many problems in the world right now, Israel being one of them. The flood of immigrants over the border is still our biggest problem. And I don't have time for Crooked Hillary anymore. I don't have time for talking about how Ron DeSantis is ungrateful and how he never trusted Chris Christie and that his mugshot was nice. I want solutions, real solutions. I don't waste my time with Crooked Hillary anymore. She's insignificant as far as I'm concerned. So that is a little bit of my Trump fatigue. Also, like I said in part 1, I was up at 4. I was on the road at 5. I drove 2 hours. It was so foggy. I can't tell you, once I got up in the mountains. By the time 1 o'clock came, I was tired. Also, the campaign makes a mistake in they had a big section of the middle of the auditorium and part of the sides that were reserved for VIPs, donors, dignitaries, etc. Trump campaign, I hope somebody hears what I have to say. Get your VIPs out of the front row, out of the front 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 rows. Sorry, put them on the side somewhere. The people who were there at the crack of dawn, who were the first ones in line outside, who had to go through the Secret Service and all of that without being a big campaign donor, without having a special VIP section, they're the ones you need in the front. It's like at a rock concert. You never put the celebrities in the front because they're not going to get up and act crazy like the fans will. But you put, a Rolling Stone fan in the front who's been listening to the Rolling Stones for 50 years. Man, they're going to rock out even if they're 70 years old too. I know, because sometimes I've been in the front of Journey concerts. That's all I'm going to say. I got nothing to say about that. That's another podcast. But there was very low energy in the arena. In the auditorium. And I believe that most of it was because there were so many VIPs in the front and they were just happy they were a VIP. No real fanaticism, no hardcore MAGA, ultra MAGA. And so Trump campaign, get your donors out of the front. Get them to the side somewhere, okay? Have a little reception with them beforehand so they can shake your hand and take a picture. But put the fanatic ultra MAGAs in the front. You need them flooding it with energy, with getting up, with screaming, with yelling. It was the most sedate rally I'd ever been to for Trump. Usually they're off the charts crazy, and this one was very, very sedate. Now, I don't know if it's because everybody had a seat, because when people are sitting, it's a little bit different. But if anybody's out there from the Trump campaign who might hear this, get your VIPs away from the front and let in ultra MAGA, okay? I end every episode with the dink of the day, and the dink of the day is Donald Trump's private security. They were goons. Sorry. They treated his supporters they were just aggressive, and they were a little bit rude. And these are hardcore people that got up at before the crack of dawn, because I was up at 4 o'clock and nobody yelled at me, but they were yelling at people unnecessarily. So that's my dink of the day. Okay, this was part 2 of my Trump rally. And look I talked too long again. So good thing I made it 2 parts, right? You can reach me on Instagram and Getter at Pickleball and Politics, on Twitter at Pickle and Paul, P-O-L. You can go to my YouTube channel, Pickleball and Politics, on my website, pickleballandpolitics.com. Please leave me a message, subscribe, tell me what you're thinking. I love to hear from you. Okay, until next time, I'll see you again soon on Pickleball and Politics.